Well, good evening and welcome to our special City Council meeting. It is June 29th at 6 o'clock. Later this week, we will celebrate an historic milestone in our nation's history. So what a way to start a week. So we'll go ahead and begin. Madam Secretary, do we have a quorum present this evening?
Yes, Mayor, we do.
Okay, what's our first item on the agenda then?
Item number 2, invocation given by Christopher Ash with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the American and Texas flags.
Our Father in heaven, we express our deep gratitude this evening for so many blessings that we enjoy. At this time of year, we have a special gratitude for 250 years from our Declaration of Independence and the freedoms that it secures for us, the liberties, and for inspired founding fathers who helped secure those for us. We pray that we may honor the legacy that we have inherited and the wonderful liberties and the light on the hill that we can be. We pray a blessing upon our city leaders, our state leaders, and our national leaders. Bless them with wisdom and judgment. Bless them with safety and protection. Please help them to honor the values that have been passed down to us. And bless their families for their service. We pray a blessing upon our civil servants, a blessing of protection upon our police and firefighters and other first responders. And we pray, of course, for the brave men and women of our military. Please watch over and be with them. We pray that in all things we may bring honor and glory to Thee, and we give thanks now in this for all that we have. In the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to Thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
All right, Ms. Vicki, next agenda item, please.
Agenda item 3A, America 250 Proclamation.
Okay, so as we know, this year marks a truly extraordinary occasion in our nation's history. The American semi-quincentennial commemorates the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence and invites us to reflect on the remarkable blessings of liberty and self-government that generations of Americans have preserved and passed on to us. As our founders undertook the immense responsibility of building a constitutional republic, they often acknowledged their dependence upon God's providence. During the Constitutional Convention, Benjamin Franklin reminded his fellow delegates of the words of Psalm 127, "Unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain." This was a message of humility, and it is therefore my honor to present this proclamation recognizing America's 250th anniversary. Whereas on July 4th, 1776, America's founders courageously declared that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, establishing a nation founded upon the timeless truths of liberty, human dignity, and self-government. And whereas the American semi-quincentennial marks a once-in-a-generation opportunity to celebrate 250 years of liberty, honor the men and women whose sacrifices secured our freedoms, and recommit ourselves to the principles that have sustained our nation since its founding. And whereas the United States of America is the longest-lasting constitutional republic in human history, built upon a unique inheritance of faith, freedom, personal responsibility, the rule of law, and a conviction that rights come not from government, but from God. And whereas our nation's success has been shaped by generations of Americans who embraced the virtues of hard work, courage, sacrifice, faith, family, and service to their communities and country, and whereas from the farms and factories that built our prosperity to the churches, schools, and civic institutions that strengthened our communities, Americans have cultivated a culture that values freedom with responsibility, opportunity with accountability, and rights accompanied by duties. And whereas throughout 2.5 centuries of triumphs and trials, Americans have repeatedly demonstrated an extraordinary commitment to preserving liberty, defending constitutional government, and passing on to future generations the blessings of a free society. And whereas the 250th anniversary of the United States offers an opportunity to celebrate our national heritage, honor the sacrifices of those who secured and defended our freedom, teach the next generation the principles upon which our nation was founded, and renew our commitment to the ideals that have made America a beacon of hope throughout the world. And whereas the City of Fate joins communities across our nation in recognizing that the American story is one of perseverance, faith, courage, innovation, and an enduring belief that free people governing themselves under God can accomplish extraordinary things. Now, therefore, I, Andrew Greenberg, Mayor of the City of Fate, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim July 4th, 2026 as America 250 Day in the City of Fate, Texas, and encourage all residents to celebrate this historic milestone with gratitude for those who came before us, appreciation for the freedoms we enjoy today, and a renewed commitment to preserving the principles of faith, liberty, family, and self-government that have guided our nation for 250 years. God bless the United States of America. I think for this proclamation, what I would like to see is let's have everybody come down to the front. And I guess, I don't know if we have a selfie stick large enough, but I would love to see everybody here representing our first responders, civic leaders, those who are looking for public office, and the community at large. Everybody who wishes to can come up and we can celebrate this proclamation together, please. Okay, Ms. Vicky, next agenda item, please.
Next is Agenda Item 4, Public Comment, and I've received one request to address the council from Randy Long, address 2263 Bryant Lane.
Welcome, Mr. Long.
Thank you. Good evening. Randy Long, 2263 Bryant Lane. I heard it said in a previous council meeting regarding a possible interim council appointment that the city budgeting exercise is coming up and there would be a steep learning curve for someone without previous council experience. Of course, bells started going off since the motivation for a ridiculous comment like this is so blatantly obvious. First, it is only one position, and we already have a neophyte on the council who I would very seriously doubt has any major budget experience whatsoever. Secondly, building a budget is not akin to splitting the atom. It does not require calculus, Latin, or particle physics. If one can add, subtract, multiply, and divide, has at least 2 functioning brain cells, can use logic, and ask intelligent questions, they are qualified to participate in budgeting. Unless the fundamental premise of revenue and expenses with allocations to line items
on the expense side has changed. It is not a steep curve. Finally, a fresh set of unbiased eyes should be welcome in the process, asking the hard questions around why, especially in this economic environment. Perhaps even seeing opportunities for cost savings and efficiencies. The absolute last thing fate needs is a prior player coming in and trying to take us back to the same old paradigm of tax and spending that existed in the past. If one thinks the budgeting process is too difficult and complex for the average person to comprehend, then you may have bigger issues. It is time to pop the imaginary budget mystique balloon and get down to the serious business of crafting the leanest, most effective, and citizen-friendly budget possible. Speaking of the budget, there is no bottomless taxpayer cornucopia of money that the city can just turn the spigot and fill the barrel. People are having to make hard choices and difficult decisions, as are businesses and organizations. Municipal governments should be no different. When times are tough, good leaders step up and do the right and sometimes tough things, not simply turn the spigot.
Thank you, Mr. Long.
And there were no others signed up to speak.
Okay, thank you. Next agenda item, please.
Next is agenda item 5A, which is discuss, consider, and take any necessary action regarding city council member place one vacancy. And so this would include interviewing candidates, accepting nominations, recessing into closed meeting if needed to discuss appointments, and then returning to regular session, voting on nominations in alphabetical order, and then ultimately considering a resolution and swearing in a new person if that's what transpires.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Vicky. So council, before we begin this process, I know that there were some, maybe some issues or some, ground rules that we wanted to all address first to make sure everybody's on the same page. One of which I'll just open us up with, any objection to, while an individual applicant is in here talking to us, answering the questions, the remaining applicants waiting outside? Is there any objection to that? Outside in the lobby. We're not going to force you to stand outside in the summer heat. I'm not sure Mr. Michael Wright would appreciate that, seeing as he's at the bottom of our list. But any objection to that? Okay, so we're good with that. Regarding the questions themselves, my thought on this was to give maybe a time limit per applicant so that and during that amount of time, whether they get to all the questions or not, depending on how long they take to answer each of those questions, but that way we can for sure say each applicant had 7 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever the number may be. Do you have any thoughts on that? Mr. Robbins?
I might suggest combining some of the questions that are very similar in nature.
Okay.
Like Mr. Hatley's question number 2, the priorities over the next 2 years, and one that I wrote as far as current needs and future needs. They seem to be kind of the same question, if you're okay with that.
Okay.
Same thing with the question 1, 7, and 8, I guess, are kind of the same vein, if you will. I'm not trying to like just...
1.
Yeah, that would be running for election, previously appointed, why aren't you run, are you going to run again? Those kinds of questions I think maybe could be put together.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, Ms. Huffman?
And I'll offer up that my first question about your motivation, most people answered that in their application, so we could strike that question.
You want to strike that question entirely?
Mm-hmm.
Any objection, council, to striking that as one of our questions?
No.
Okay. Applicants, we are striking the question, what is your motivation for seeking the council appointment? So we will not be asking that to any of you this evening. So as far as Mr. Robbins combining, say the ones, Mr. Hatley's second question,
Yes,
the 3 priorities, and which one of yours?
My second question.
Okay, do we want to?
About city services, if Mr. Hatley's okay with that.
Do we want to just say Mr. Hatley will, since Mr. Robbins is a bit more detailed, are you okay if we cut your question from that since any objections to that from council? Okay, We will strike the question, what do you see as the top 3 priorities facing fate, and what specific actions would you support to address them? And Mr. Robbins, remind me of one more time. I feel like you had one more.
Mr. Hatley's question number 1 about the filing period for May closed. What in fact has influenced you to run or not run? Do you plan to run for the rest of the term in November? And then have you previously been appointed? I think those can be combined, like.
I think you'd scratch my question number 1. That would.
Oh, no, I was just, as opposed to going in order of questions, maybe combining them together and just kind of talk about whether you're going to, put those questions together. I'm not asking to strike anything. I'm just trying to like efficiency stuff.
So we would just put all 3 of those, since I guess some of Mr. Manival's are yes or no, we would just put those as part of that top question there, rather than go down the line and continue to add. Okay, council, so the question here is Mr. Hatley's first question, which is at the top, combining it so that it's asked at the same time as Mr. Manival's 2 questions that he submitted. Any objection to that?
No.
Okay. So we'll do that, and then do we want to put a generalized time for each applicant to ensure that everybody's given the same amount of time to answer the questions? If so, what time amount or allotment do we think is appropriate here? Or do we want to just ask and, would we have to have a time limit? I guess the question is, somebody could come in and take 4 minutes, somebody could take 40 minutes.
We don't have a set time limit in our rules.
So we should probably have a limit.
I'd say 10 for each one.
10 minutes for each applicant? Okay, and that would include, just to be clear, both to council and to the applicants, that would mean that you have 10 minutes to answer the entirety of the questions. If we didn't get to one of those questions because of the back and forth exchange or because of you answering the question, you would not have an opportunity to answer all of them. You have 10 minutes total time. Yes, sir.
Since I'm last, do I get the remaining of everyone else?
Council, any objections? No. Clever. That's a good question, though. I appreciate that. Okay, so 10 minutes. So, Ms. Jennifer, just making sure everything sounds good with this, with the rules that we've put in place here.
Yeah, just, I certainly understand why you're asking the candidates to step out of the room so they can't hear others' answers and benefit from them. But I just wanted to point out that obviously this is an open meeting. You can't force that issue, but it makes a whole lot of sense for them to be out of the room so they can't.
Okay.
So I just wanted to point that out.
So it would be, we would be strongly suggesting, we're not requiring.
Yes, sir.
We're not going to bring our police to escort them out. Okay, so at this time, okay, so everybody's good with that? I want to make sure. Council, any other questions or concerns here, Mr. Robbins?
How do you want to handle if any follow-up questions from council?
Oh, good question. I would say that follow-up questions still would be in line with the 10 minutes. And do we want to, do anybody have any suggestions on that?
Would we, oh, sorry.
No, please.
Would we ask the same follow-up questions to everybody?
The difficulty there would be, let's say by applicant number 3, we ask a follow-up question. We would not have asked applicant 1 and 2 that same question. So I would imagine probably not. If we ask a follow-up question, does that then need to be permanent for everybody else?
No, not necessarily. I mean, usually a follow-up question is just clarifying what they've just answered.
Okay.
So it would not necessarily, and if y'all feel at some point that you need to ask the others, you could do that. But usually follow-up is just because you're trying to clarify something that was just said.
And so I would say for council, if we ask a follow-up question, let's just make sure it's a very quick and it specifically is to clarify or
More
say
of a
something.
clarification.
Absolutely.
follow-up, Not an additional, like, brand-new question.
Right.
Just clarifying questions.
Right. Okay, any other thoughts, council, before we get started? Once this train leaves the station, there's no stopping.
I have a question.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Since I'll be calling the names of the applicants, did you want to hear those in the order in which they applied or in alphabetical order? And then also something to consider, we do have one gentleman that is on vacation that is going to join us remotely for his interview. So I don't know if you would want to hear him first just to turn him loose, or that's completely up to y'all. I'm just throwing those things out there.
Is he online right now?
He is waiting in the waiting room for us to add him to the meeting.
Okay. Council, thoughts on that? Are we cool with moving Mr. Sumerack up to the front?
Sure. Yep.
I want to know where he's on vacation and why he didn't invite the rest of us. Okay, yes. So we will move him to the top. Okay.
And then the remainder in alphabetical order? Or?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, yes, sir.
The benefit of those being interviewed, should we get a countdown clock on the wall so we know how much time we got left?
So the countdown clock, yes, the timer is set to 10 minutes. Is anything out there for them to see as far as the countdown clock? So they'd just have to stand right at the door here and look and see?
Well, and staff will go out into the hall and.
Okay.
And
Staff will go out
retrieve.
and bring the next person in.
Yes,
Okay, perfect.
Stephen
Thank
will
you,
be good at
Stephen.
that.
I just thought of one question.
Oh.
Will we pause their time during the reading of the questions?
I don't think we need to go that far.
Okay, just trying to be fair.
No, I appreciate it, but we're not going to pause it for anybody, so 10 minutes is 10 minutes, including the question asking time. Okay, any other thoughts? Okay, so at this time, to the remaining applicants, not Mr. Sumerack, who we're going to see joining remotely in just a moment, but again, it is strongly suggested that if you are one of the remaining applicants, if you would please step outside so as to not create an unfair advantage, and staff will come get you. Yes, sir?
Can you tell us the order now?
Sure. So here's the order as it stands alphabetically. After this remote one, we'll have Miss Stephanie Adams, Mr. Bob Chambers, Miss Lorna Grove, Mr. Aaron Kirkpatrick, Mr. Lauren Megacy, Mr. Joshua Martin, Mr. Brad Scott, and then Mr. Michael Wright.
Once we answer our questions, can we stay back in here, or do you want us to back out?
I don't see a problem with staying in here, council.
No problem.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Any issues with us carrying notes?
Any issues with carrying what? I'm so sorry?
Carrying our notes.
You're more than welcome to have notes. Yeah, anything you want to bring up to the podium, you may. Any other questions? These are good. Keep them coming. All right. Well, we'll officially begin. Thank you.
And just to be clear, the 10-minute timer will not show on the screen while we have a remote person in.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Will you just let me know, like when we're at a minute left, so we
Yeah,
can?
we're about to start a timer, and so you will hear the timer go off on my assistant's phone.
Okay. That's great. Okay. Vicky's assistant, when we want you to say something, we'll ask you. Okay. All right, are we ready? Okay, and council, I would say for this, if you guys would like to just read your questions as they come up, I think that would be the easiest way to ask that. I might vary it up in terms of how we're going down the dais just to give those remaining in the audience some variance, but you'll be responsible for your questions if you're okay with that. Everybody sound good? Is that okay? Okay, perfect. Okay, are we ready? Okay. Welcome, Mr., am I saying it right, Sumerack? Sumerack, okay. Well, welcome. We appreciate you being here from vacation. We're going to jump right into the questions, and we'll start with Ms. Raines.
Okay. Tell us about a time when you had a project that needed to be accomplished. You were enthusiastic about completing it, but upon initiation of the project, you realized processes, procedures, policies served as potential obstacles to the completion of your project or inhibited the deadline. How did you choose to proceed in that situation, and were you able to accomplish your goal?
Okay, so I'd like to start off talking about what I do in my professional life. I'm the Director of Fine Arts for Rockwall ISD. I took that position in July of 2020, and if y'all recall, that was in the middle of COVID, right before we opened the schools back up. So I started a brand new job and was presented with a ton of information coming out from the state as far as all the guidelines and rules that we had to follow, and had to quickly determine how to allow our fine arts programs to still be able to exist during that time period. And then we had to constantly keep up with all the changing guidelines that were coming out. And on top of that, I was working on my graduate degree, my master's at that time. So task management, or spinning plates has become kind of a specialty of me. And that process is you figure out what you have to get done by the end of the week, and then you just back up from there with tasks that you have to complete at the end of each day. So that was a lot of late nights because you had to check off everything that was on that list today to make sure you were achieving your goals by the end of that week. And as far as projects right now, I don't have a specific time that I have not been able to achieve the project because I still employ a similar system now where I'm constantly evaluating the priorities and how to stay on track with my projects.
Okay. And tell us about a time you felt compelled to make a decision that resulted in a much less popular outcome, but you believed to be the best course of action, despite pressure from colleagues, company executives, family, to make a different choice that would be more accepted, but you disagreed with as being the best course of action. How'd you navigate that scenario and reach the conclusion for the decision you made?
Yes, ma'am. So that's weekly, almost daily sometimes in my job. I deal with appeals from parents and students that are not satisfied with decisions that have been made by teachers or campus administration. I'm involved with investigations. I'm involved with budget planning. So that comes up quite regularly for me, that I have to deal with situations that everybody is not happy with the outcome. But I would say this, you don't make those decisions in a bubble. So you collaborate with people, you seek additional information when appropriate, and then you collect as much information as possible to make the best decision you can with the available information that you have.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Robbins?
I'll start with the largest item between now and November is the city budget. Part of that process determining city services. In your opinion, what areas are most critical? Which areas are lacking? Please comment on today's needs versus future needs and how you would approach funding current and future needs.
Yes, sir. So outside of looking in and having limited time to prepare for this, I would say that you've always got to start off and looking at your police and fire, keeping the safety of the cities at the top of the list. And with the growth that Fate is experiencing right now, are we appropriately staffing police and fire? Do they have the resources they need, the equipment, training, budget? Are we keeping their salaries competitive so that we can attract the best possible people in those areas? But it doesn't stay with just police and fire. You have to look at all of your city services. You can talk about, are we putting enough infrastructure in for water supply to keep up this growth? Because that all takes long-term planning to build that infrastructure. So those would be the top of my concerns.
The other largest item between now and November is still the city budget, but part of that process is the tax rate. What's your philosophy on setting a tax rate that supports strong city services for a growing community?
So I believe in low taxes, and I believe that city government has to be a good steward of the tax money because it's not their money, it's the people's money. And so looking at the city services and are there efficiencies that we need to look at to keep that tax rate low? Are we being mindful of how those funds are being spent? And everybody always says the lowest bidder. Sometimes the lowest bidder is not the answer if you then in turn occur additional costs because of repair work or things not being done correctly. So there's several factors that you have to look at all that. But in general, low taxes are the way to go. And then having proper zoning in place so that you're building a healthy tax base so that that tax burden is spread out across both residents and the commercial aspect of it so that neither entity on either side of that coin truly feels the pain of those taxes. And I do want to point out, again, there are some things that only city government can do, such as those city services. So while taxes are necessary, you do have to make sure you're putting things in place to be good steward of those funds.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Manival. And when you read yours, because we combined them, you'll just need to read the one from Hatley as well whenever you read that question, since it's all three of them are combined now.
Mike? Thank you. Sorry, I was turned off. Do you plan to run for the rest of this term? In November, there'll be another election to fill it through the the end of the term in May?
So I'll be honest, I'm not sure at this time. The same reason that it got me curious about this position is the same reason why I'm hesitant to give a definite yes or a definite no. I've always been interested in politics, especially national politics. With everything that has gone on with social media lately, I do feel compelled to become more involved in local government, and I feel that this is a unique opportunity to get involved with it and hopefully have some positive change with it. But again, with everything that is taking place on social media, it does give me pause. So today I'm unsure, and if y'all choose to put me in this position, is definitely something that I would consider and have to discuss with my family and to think about that for a while.
Sure. Did you want? Mark has sort of a tag-along question there.
Oh, I was just going to state, what do you see as the top 3 priorities facing the city of Fate over the next 2 years, and what specific actions would you support to address them?
Absolutely.
Oh, wait a minute.
Hold on, Mr. Sumrach, hold on 1 second. That's the one we struck.
The one we struck,
Mr. Utley.
okay.
Read the other one.
I thought Rick would tell me to go ahead and cover my part of that. Okay, there we go, I'm sorry.
Okay.
The filing period for the May election was closed on February the 13th, and there was an open council seats available. What factors influenced your decision not to run for one of those seats and instead pursue appointments to the vacant position?
It wasn't really something that was on my radar, again, until everything was coming out on social media, which then I started paying more attention to the city council meetings and things that were going on. So again, it's just like my previous answer. So while the issues of social media have attracted me and spiked my curiosity, it also gives me pause at the same time.
And I had another question, but I think I know the answer to. You've never been appointed to fill a council vacancy in the past, have you?
No, sir.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Huffman.
What is your favorite thing about the city of Fate?
Oh, easy. It's the whole reason why we moved here. One, it's a great place to raise a family. We moved here almost 11 years ago. So my boys were 10 and 12 years old. It's an affordable place. It has the small town feel. And there's a lot of great things that have happened, like the development of the downtown area and the Fate grocery store with the outdoor concert venue. I still think we have that small town feel, and I still think we're affordable for families to come and live here.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sumrach, for answering our council questions. We appreciate you joining us from vacation.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, please.
So for the record, next we have Stephanie Adams.
Welcome, Ms. Adams.
Hi, how are you?
Doing very well, thank you. Okay. Ms. Raines, you want to start us off again?
Hey, Miss Adams.
Hi.
All right. So tell us about a time when you had a project that needed to be accomplished and you were enthusiastic about completing it, but upon initiation of the project, you realized processes, procedures, policies served as potential obstacles to the completion of your project or inhibited the deadline. How did you choose to proceed in that situation, and were you able to accomplish your goal?
So during my 12 years on the Board of Trustees, there were a lot of projects that I was eager to address an issue or move a project forward, but policies, legal requirements, budgets, or procedures made the path more complicated than expected. In those situations, I did not view the process as a roadblock. I viewed it as a guardrail. My approach was to understand the reason behind the requirement, gather facts, work with staff and legal counsel when needed, and find a path forward. Sometimes that meant adjusting the timeline, changing the scope, or finding another solution. Most of the time, we were able to accomplish the objective, even if it looked a little different than we originally thought. That is the same approach I would bring to this council: respect the process, work collaboratively, and focus on practical solutions that move this community forward.
Okay. Tell us about a time when you felt compelled to make a decision that resulted in a much less popular outcome, but you believed to be the best course of action, despite pressure from colleagues, company executives, family, to make a different choice that would be more accepted, but you disagreed with it as being the best course of action. How did you navigate that scenario and reach the conclusion for the decision you made?
One of the most important responsibilities we had as a board of trustees was planning for growth and while being responsible with taxpayer dollars. So the thought that comes to mind, there were many times, but the thoughts that come to mind the most were 2 bond elections, one in 2015 and one in 2021. The board took a community-driven approach to prioritize the current and future needs of the district and commissioned bond committees to review those needs. The projects were exciting because they were necessary for a growing community, but they also required us to work through bond procedures, construction timelines, budgets, and public accountability. Lupe Garcia Elementary and Raco Middle School, both located in Fate, are just 2 of those many successful projects of those 2 successful bonds. Upon opening Lupe Garcia Elementary, normally we opened a elementary school with 350 to 400 students. Lupe Garcia Elementary opened with over 600 students. I am proud that during my time on the board, Rockwall ISD was able to add needed schools and facilities while also lowering the tax rate, the overall tax rate significantly, from $1.47 to 1.02 by 2023. With planning, collaboration, and fiscal discipline, you can meet the needs of a growing community and still protect your public's trust. That is the same approach I would bring to council.
Okay, Mr. Robbins.
Largest item between now and November is the city budget. Part of this process is determining city services. In your opinion, what areas are most critical? Which areas are lacking? Please comment on today's needs versus future needs and how you would approach funding current and future needs.
When I think of city services, I believe the most critical priorities are public safety, fire protection, infrastructure, customer service to our residents, and making sure the city has operational capacity to keep up with growth. As Fate continues to grow, residents expect safe neighborhoods, reliable roads, responsive city services, and facilities that can support the community, not just today, but 5, 10, and 20 years from now. More than a decade ago, I spoke before the city council. Actually, it was the mayor. It was a state of the city address from Mayor Bill Broderick about the need for a plan for future City Hall because I was concerned about whether the proposed facility would meet the city's long-term needs. At the time, they were proposing 2,100 square feet City Hall. That experience reinforced my belief that growth requires forward-thinking planning. My approach would be to prioritize essential services, maintain healthy reserves, look for efficiencies, and evaluate projects based on long-term value. I also believe residents deserve transparent conversations about major investments so they understand both the cost and the benefits. Ultimately, my goal would be to help Fate remain financially responsible while making the investments necessary to serve the residents who live here today and those who will call Fate home in the future.
Along the same lines, part of the process is the tax rate. What's your philosophy on setting a tax rate that supports strong city services for a growing community? So my philosophy, and I apologize for reading, but I can get through it faster if I do read. My philosophy is that taxpayers deserve both responsible stewardship of their tax dollars and city services that keep up with the needs of a growing community. Because of my experience as a trustee, I understand the importance of growth, planning for future needs, and making decisions that directly impact taxpayers. I do not believe the tax rate should be looked at in isolation. It has to be considered alongside other factors, including the city's overall financial condition, growth, public safety, fire protection, infrastructure needs, and the level of service residents expect. Fate also has some unique challenges. We have 2 school districts, multiple MUDs districts, PIDs, and different layers of taxation depending upon where a home is located.
Many residents may not realize that two households with the same assessed value can pay very different total tax bills because of those taxing entities. I'm talking thousands of dollars. My approach would be to evaluate the budget carefully, identify priorities, looking for efficiencies, and make sure taxpayer dollars are being spent wisely before considering any tax rate adjustment. Ultimately, my goal would be to support a budget that protects the city's financial health, maintains strong essential services, and remains mindful of the tax burden on homeowners and businesses.
Mr. Manival.
Have you previously been appointed to fill a council
Never.
vacancy? All right.
Are you asking your second part?
No, we were combining. We
Okay.
decided Mark's going to combine my question.
Yeah, he punted it over to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
The following period for the May election closed on February the 13th, and there were open city council seats available. What factors influenced your decision not to run for one of those seats and instead pursue an appointment to the vacant position? And would you intend, upon serving the rest of until November, rerunning after November to complete the term?
Mr. Halley, it's a great question. I did strongly consider running for council in one of these open seats during this election. It's a matter of public record that I did request a candidate packet. After discussing it with those closest to me, I ultimately decided not to file during the election cycle. I am not looking for a political fight. I am looking to serve the citizens of Fate in a meaningful and constructive way. I have run multiple campaigns and served on the Rockwall Board of Trustees for 12 years until 2023. So I am comfortable standing before voters and earning their support. This vacancy creates an immediate need for someone who can step in with a steady approach, listen to all sides, and focus on the work of the city rather than adding to the division. Having lived in this community for 20 years, followed city council meetings, and spoken at a few PNC and city council meetings, over the years, I believe I can be productive from day one. If appointed, my focus would be on serving all residents, listening carefully, making thoughtful decisions, and helping move the city forward while working to strengthen public trust and confidence.
Thank you.
I believe it's my turn. It's, hopefully it's one of the most enjoyable questions, but what is your favorite thing about the city of Fate?
So it's the people. That's what makes Fate unique. I grew up in a small rural town, and when we moved here in 2006, Fate had less than 3,000 residents, I believe. I think the population sign, the city limit sign, said 600. So we've seen a lot of growth. Fate reminded me of my home because I grew up in a rural town. The city has grown tremendously since then, but what has remained constant is the sense of community. I remember one time when, y'all may not know Billy Stevenson, but she was one of the original Fate gals, and she lived off of 66. I remember one time when her cows were out, and I noticed it, and I pulled up, and she was over 90 years old, and I loaded her up in my Toyota Sequoia, and we went and rounded up cows. I mean, that's the kind of community we had, and that's the kind of community that we can still have here. People care about the city, care about the neighbors, and want Fate to remain a special place to live. That's what's kept my family here, and it's what I value most.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Well, you had 3 seconds to spare. You're every speech and debate teacher's dream person to come speak. Well done. Thank you.
Any follow-up questions? Okay.
So for the record, next we have Bob Chambers.
Welcome, Mr. Chambers.
Hi.
Okay, Ms. Raines.
All right, and jump right in. Tell us about a time when you had a project that needed to be accomplished and you were enthusiastic about completing it, but upon initiation of the project, you realized processes, procedures, policies served as potential obstacles to the completion of your project or inhibited the deadline imposed. How did you choose to proceed in that situation, and were you able to accomplish your goal?
Yes, this goes way back, but I was working in industry, and we had machines that people operated, and there's a lot of downtime in that operation. So we looked at, let's tandemize them. Let's put two machines together, one person to operate it. Sounds like a great idea until you start talking to the union and to maintenance and to the operators themselves. But I got it done basically through analysis of the data. Here's what it's going to take. Here's what the time and motion studies say about it. And we got everybody convinced, got everybody on board.
Okay. And tell us about a time when you felt compelled to make a decision that resulted in a less popular outcome, but you believed to be the best course of action, despite pressure from colleagues, company executives, family, to make a different choice that would be more accepted, but you disagreed with as being the best course of action. How did you navigate that scenario and reach the conclusion for the decision you made?
Thank you. Again, this goes back to industry. I was on the staff of a manufacturing plant as the HR manager, and the very influential production manager wanted to change the schedule for the people who worked there. Instead of 8-hour shifts, she wanted to go to 12-hour shifts, rotating basis. And this is a very people-friendly environment, and my gut feel was that the people are not going to like this. But aside from the people side of it, I did some research and found out that there are some negative side effects to rotating schedules, 12-hour schedules, to where people get burned out, people are not as productive. So presenting that to site management, the decision was made to keep the schedule the way it was.
Mr. Robbins.
Largest item between now and November is the city budget. What part of that process is determining city services. In your opinion, what areas are most critical? Which areas are lacking? Please comment on today's needs versus future needs and how you would approach funding current and future needs.
Thank you. As far as city services, I think the most critical city service is public safety. We are rapidly growing. When I moved here 9 years ago, the city was less than 20,000, and now it's more than 30,000. We need to keep up with the population growth, particularly, I think, in the fire department. I saw something the other day about we have 4 firefighters on duty at any one time, which is not enough to fight a reasonably sized house fire. The triple certification that we used to have, we don't apparently do anymore. What's lacking? I think it's kind of out in left field maybe, but I would like to see an ambulance service as part of our public safety department. We're growing. A couple of years from now, we'll peak out at 50,000 population, and sooner or later, Rockwall may or may not be able to support us this way, or Rockwall County, whoever's doing it. I think as we grow into a real city, that's a critical need. As far as funding services go, we need to continue to add to the commercial and even industrial base. Funding up until recently has pretty much been funded by developers' fees, and now that we're getting built out, the development fees are going to go away. So we need to continue to grow the city, sales tax revenue, property tax revenue. As far as funding services, we just need to make sure that the city growth continues so that we can support those activities, those functions.
Part of that process is also the tax rate. What is your philosophy on setting a tax rate that supports strong city services for a growing community?
We need to watch what we used to call in the military mission creep. the concept that, oh, that sounds like a good idea, let's do it. Well, it may be a good idea, but do we really need it? I think we need to look at the gotta-haves versus the nice-to-haves and make sure that the gotta-haves get satisfied from our tax revenue.
Mr. Manival.
Have you previously been appointed to fill a council vacancy?
No.
All right, thank you. We combined some questions, so Mark, I'm going to Mark now.
Mark's gonna do
He
it.
punted them over to me.
Yes.
The filing period for the May election closed on February the 13th, and there were open city council seats available. What factors influenced your decision not to run for one of those seats and instead pursue an appointment to the vacant position? And to add to Rick's question, if you were to be appointed, would you run for the remainder of it in November?
Okay. My decision back in February was based on a couple of things, time and resources, my own, but also to the question of why am I here today is because things have changed since February. We have a vacant seat. It's one that you don't have to spend thousands of dollars trying to run for, but it still gives me the opportunity to serve, which is part of my DNA. I served in the Air Force, in industry. I was on the boards of directors of 2 different chambers of commerce. I was the chairman for United Way campaign. My service here in the city was on the FDC, the MDD, and now the charter, the comprehensive plan review. So it's what I do. I'm retired. I have the time, and I like the city. I want it to grow and function efficiently.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Huffman.
What is your favorite thing about the City of Fate?
I think the fact that it still feels like a small town. It's not really a small town anymore when you look at our population, but the feel of the city is very friendly. It's very accessible, and that's what I like about it.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Chambers.
Can I say one thing?
You still have 2 minutes.
One of the issues that I failed to mention is accessibility, north-south. We have a downtown. We're pushing downtown. We're developing downtown. We're putting a big park downtown. But on the other side of I-30, there's tremendous growth. And my fear is that we're going to end up with 2 downtowns. We've got the downtown, and then we've got the I-30 South downtown. With all of the shops and stores and amenities that are going in on the south side, you have to wonder, is anybody from the south side ever going to come north again? So we need to work on accessibility. I'm a big proponent of widening 551. I know that's a TxDOT issue, but we need to get our politicians and city leaders behind pushing TxDOT to do something there, because we're going to end up with 2 cities inside Fate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers.
And next we have Lorna Grove.
Welcome, Ms. Grove.
How are you?
Doing very well, thank you. We'll kick this right off. Ms. Raines?
All right. Tell us about a time when you had a project that needed to be accomplished and you were enthusiastic about completing it, but upon initiation of the project, you realized processes, procedures, policies served as potential obstacles to the completion of your project or inhibited the deadline imposed. How did you choose to proceed in that situation, and were you able to accomplish your goal?
Wow, that was fast. I'm going to read my answers because y'all know I'm not a public speaker. Okay, with over 40 years in the workforce, I have encountered situations like this countless times. You simply overcome the challenges that arise, whether it's related to processes, procedures, or anything else. You adapt, you think outside the box, you find solutions, and you finish the job.
Okay. Tell us about a time when you felt compelled to make a decision that resulted in a much less popular outcome, but you believed to be the best course of action, despite pressure from colleagues, company executives, family, to make a different choice that would be more accepted, but you disagreed with as being the best course of action. How did you navigate that scenario and reach the conclusion for the decision you made?
Once again, I've encountered this situation many times in my life. In each instance, I've always chosen to do what I believe is the right thing, regardless of pressure to act differently. To do otherwise would be a disservice and would betray my values and morals and principles I will not compromise on.
Mr. Robbins?
Largest item between now and November is the city budget. Part of that process is determining city services. In your opinion, what areas are most critical? Which areas are lacking? Please comment on today's needs versus future needs, and how would you approach funding current and future needs?
The city's most important responsibilities are the services people count on every day. Public safety has to come first, so making sure our police officers, our firefighters have what they need is essential. Reliable water, good roads, and solid infrastructure are just as critical in our growing community. As for areas where we're lacking, I'm not sure that we're lacking anywhere, but I think it's where we can improve. I want to understand the challenges and hear actually from the people doing the work. Listening first is important. One of my hopes for Fate is that it remains the kind of community where my grandbabies can afford to buy a home and live just down the road from me. I want them to enjoy safe neighborhoods, dependable services, and roads that are well-built and well-maintained. The decisions we make today will shape the city that they inherit. To me, good budgeting means balancing today's needs with tomorrow's, and we have to maintain excellent services now while making smart investments to prepare the city for the future. Every dollar we spend should make Fate stronger, not just for today, but for the next generations to come.
Part of that process is the tax rate. What is your philosophy on setting a tax rate that supports strong city services for a growing community?
I believe our first responsibility is to make sure the city can provide the core services our residents expect and deserve: public safety, roads, infrastructure, and day-to-day services that keep our growing community running well. We should never put the city in a position where we can't meet those responsibilities by cutting ourselves off at the knees. At the same time, every decision we make has a real impact on the families who live here. Many people are feeling the strain of today's economy, and I think it's important that we remember we're spending their money, not ours. We have to be good stewards of every dime. My philosophy is pretty simple. If something is truly necessary to provide essential services or prepare for a responsible growth, then we should be willing to fund it. But that doesn't mean we should stop looking for creative ways to do things more efficiently before asking the taxpayers to carry the burden. We should always ask whether there is a better or smarter or more cost-effective way to accomplish the same goal. And I saw in the last budget meeting, workshop, or whatever it's called, when Michael talked about finding savings by changing vendors and those creative solutions. That's what I mean. There should be we can't just because it's always been done, doesn't mean it's always been done right. There's other ways of doing things. Oh, there you go.
Mr. Manival.
Have you ever been appointed to a Fate council position in the past?
No.
Mr. Hatley.
Okay, since I know, I actually wrote this after Lorna got in. So, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to adjust the question. The filing period, of course, for May was closed on February 13th, and you did run for the seat. So what factors influenced that decision to run at that time, and what factors?
Hey, I'm gonna stop that just because that is changing the question.
Is it?
And Ms. Ritchie, I just want to make sure before we continue.
Yeah, I just think, I understand why you did it.
Okay.
Clearly, but I think maybe just going to the next question.
Okay.
Would be great.
Just because the question is irrelevant to you, but
How about just going to the middle part of it? What factors influence your decision to run for this position right here?
Okay, I guess that was the, kind of the Martha's question at the end or whatever, what made my motivation for doing it. The reason I ran it back in May is because last year, I actually ran for mayor, and everybody knows that, and I think that I got 5 of the 6 of y'all's vote for last year, and I haven't changed. And so my motivation is people last year and this year came and asked me to do something, to try and help. And so my motivation has always been to the citizens of Fate.
Thank you.
Ms. Huffman.
What is your favorite thing about the city of Fate?
The people. The people. I knocked over 800 doors last year or this year, talked to thousands of people, and they are some of the best people I have ever met in my life. I mean, they are just living their lives, and I think they need somebody that recognizes that they're out there. They're not political. They have lives to lead. They have children to grow, and so what I love about Fate is the people. I love the parks. Now that I have grandbabies, we go every day. And I just love that it feels still like a family community.
Is
All
this
right.
a follow-up?
No, my question didn't, because of the change, he didn't really combine my question, so we got to
Okay.
go back to mine. It got
Okay.
left out. Do you plan to run for the rest of the term in November that would mean you'd serve until May, or do you just want to serve the balance till November?
Right now, I would only want to serve the balance because I have a goal that I would like to do between now and November. And that is, like I said, I believe several of you voted for me. If I can't help bring a united council, then I will have failed and I will not want to run. If that doesn't help bring the city together, then I would not want to ever run in the political climate again.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ms. Grove. And to the rest of council, if we're keeping score, Michael is the only one who's gotten a shout out from one of the applicants so far. So we're going to have to do a little better.
Next, we have Aaron Kirkpatrick.
Okay, welcome. Ms. Raines?
Okay, I'm going to go quick. Mine's long. Tell us about a time when you had a project that needed to be accomplished and you were enthusiastic about completing it, but upon initiation of the project, you realized processes, procedures, policies served as potential obstacles to the completion of your project or inhibited the deadline imposed. How did you choose to proceed in that situation, and were you able to accomplish your goal?
Yes, so I work in finance. So we had a project that needs a little bit of reporting overhaul. And so the company I used to work at, everything was in Excel. Excel's it crashes after so many lines, and it's not very useful for reporting when you starts growing and getting really big. So my job was to come in and revamp it and to create a different process, a better reporting tool. I introduced Tableau. Very simple. I did all my due diligence, went through all the proper channels of communication. Long story short, I was hit with a lot of resistance. There's a lot of things that I didn't take into consideration. My company at the time dealt with government contracts. There was a lot of security issues of bringing in data into the system. Once I got past that, I was hit with mapping issues, right? So a company like Amazon LLC with a dot, there's all kinds of mapping. You have to remap it into it. That took a lot of time. And then once I got past all that hurdles, I had to introduce it to our team. Some people don't want to learn, and so it's very difficult to communicate that. And so, long story short, I was laid off from that job, and my project was unfinished. It was very heartbreaking for me to not be able to complete that project, but at the end of the day, I learned a lot and realized I thought I knew all the steps that were there, and you kind of just take a step back and realize you could have asked more questions and done more, and it's just one of those not a big deal, but just want a learning experience.
Tell us about a time when you felt compelled to make a decision that resulted in a much less popular outcome, but you believed to be the best course of action, despite pressure from colleagues, company executives, family, to make a different choice that would be more accepted, but you disagreed with as being the best course of action. How did you navigate that scenario and reach the conclusion for the decision you made?
Sure. So again, working in finance and pricing, goal is to increase prices 2 to 5% every year. We had one customer who, during COVID time, they were feeling some constraints with capital budgeting and whatnot. So CFO wanted me to increase pricing by 5%. I said, hey, this customer's been with us for 15 years. A lot of relationships are built. I suggested a no price increase. I look at comparables, some comps. Even if we didn't increase it for the next 2 years, they would still be our highest paying customer. So long story short, I was able to persuade him not to do up to 5%, but only up to 2%. So there was a little bit of a middle ground there, and I felt that was very successful for our customer, for myself, the business, and for our CFO.
Mr. Robbins.
The largest item between now and November is the city budget. Part of that process is determining city services. In your opinion, what areas are most critical? Which areas are lacking? Please comment on today's needs versus future needs. How would you approach funding current and future needs?
Sure. So for transparency, I am new to this process. I am coming in with unbiased opinion, with open ideas. So my goal is to make our city safer. So if there's a budget to increase the budget for police officers, responders, is kind of what I like to do first. I'm a resident here with 4 kids. So that's a number one thing on my list. Community service, building parks, having places for kids to go in libraries, to have fun, learn, and play would be my second. And then probably infrastructure. Look at the infrastructure, the roads, kind of look where those budget deficits are, and then kind of look at the revenues bringing in, and then kind of adjust from there. Again, I don't have the data to support that, so that could change once I get data to show that. But that would be my process.
Part of that process is the tax rate. What is your philosophy on setting a tax rate that supports strong city services for a growing community?
Yeah, so again, I don't have the data with me, but I would say I look at the deficit and then with the revenue that's coming in, and I would just adjust as I see fit.
And this is a question specifically for you because you're currently serving on MUD 9 Board of Directors, which, thank you, we've got Fate residents on these boards. Are you wanting to, if you're selected, would you resign from one to be on this board, or?
So I'm unaware, do I need to resign? Is that how that works?
It is an elected position.
Okay.
The 2 positions may be incompatible, so it may be an automatic resignation.
Okay.
So, I mean, I didn't know if you knew that or not.
I did not.
Okay.
Whatever's the best need for the city is what I'm all about. So if that's what I need to do, then I will do that. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Manival.
Have you ever been appointed to fill a council vacancy here in Fate? All right, thanks.
Yep.
Mr. Hatley.
The filing period for the May election closed on February 13th, and there were open city council seats available. What factors influenced your decision not to run for one of those seats and instead pursue the appointment to this vacant position?
Yeah, so this is an opportunity for me to get my feet wet. I have no idea, so I'd like to come in and I can dedicate my time and resources to 4 or 5 months, and then I can reevaluate at that time. Again, this is a learning experience for me, so I want to give just the best opportunity for Fate to thrive, and I feel like this is a good opportunity for myself to learn and just get the experience.
Okay, so you would consider running for the remainder of the term?
Correct. Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Ms. Huffman. Oh, sorry.
What is your favorite thing about the city of Fate?
I think the diversity. I love the diversity here. I grew up in Frisco. I worked with the mayor over there, really good friends with him over there and his son, and I just saw all the diversity, the growth when I grew up there, and I feel like Fate is like the little sister of Frisco. I just see the same similarities. So I just love the diversity here in Fate and just the growth that it's becoming. Yeah.
Okay, well, Mr. Kirkpatrick, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for your time.
Appreciate
Appreciate
for
it.
being here.
And next will be Lauren Megacy.
Welcome, Mr. Megacy.
Council?
Okay, Ms. Raines.
Okay. Tell us about a time when you had a project that needed to be accomplished and you were enthusiastic about completing it, but upon initiation of the project, you realized processes, procedures, policies served as potential obstacles to the completion of your project or inhibited the deadline imposed. How did you choose to proceed in that situation, and were you able to accomplish your goal?
So that is a very timely one. I am project manager by trade. So I've been a project manager since 2011. So I work for PepsiCo. I do major projects. I've ran multi-million-dollar projects. I've had 155 contractors under me. Every project, you're going to have issues. It's how you deal with those issues that count there. So you've got lots of opportunity. You can plan it out there. You can have everything working great. Working with the PMOs, everything works fine. All of a sudden, you get something pops up. Well, this process isn't quite right here. We're starting to do testing. How do we get through it? You can't just stop and say, well, I can't do anything. You got to figure out what you're going to do. How do you fix it? How do you move on? What are the pros and cons of it? Make a decision. Live by that decision and move forward. One of the key things, I can tie it right back to the City of Fate, that you make some decisions on the council that are not popular. Back in 2016, we did a lot of annexations. We have all the north, up north of us here, a lot of open land, a lot of open tracts, a lot of big pieces of property up there that were out of our ETJ. Part of the problem you got with that is you have the county that does not have any really jurisdiction or authority to tell a developer what they can and can't do in there. So one of the things that we did is we went and we annexed all that property up there. Not very popular. We had a lot of people with pitchforks out here, had a lot of people come in here commenting. Your husband was up here as well saying, hey, we don't want to be annexed in. But when you look back at why we annexed it in there, we now have the authority from a city to have our governance, our documents to say what you can and can't do up there. We can protect the northern part of Fate, because if we didn't, they could put a data center, you couldn't do anything. They can put in tract homes up there, you wouldn't be able to do anything. With it's in part of our ETJ and our city now, you have that authority based on the documents. We can tell them what they can't do. There's limitations, but that was the key thing there. Looking back on that one there, that was probably the toughest time that we went through, but it was the right decision.
Okay. Tell us about a time when you felt compelled to make a decision that resulted in a much less popular outcome, but you believed to be the best course of action despite pressure from colleagues, company executives, family, to make a different choice that would be more accepted, but you disagreed with as being the best course of action. How did you navigate that scenario and reach the conclusion for the decision you made?
Pretty quick. That would go back to a perfect example of annexations there. That was something that we needed to do. We needed to protect the City of Fate. And Michael was just getting on board. He started in 2014 when I was mayor in 2014. That annexation there, I believe, has saved that north part of Fate. South part, we've got challenges back there, but a lot of that is developed up north there. People moved up there for a reason. You guys moved up there so you wouldn't have to be in the city limits. You wouldn't have to be by regulations. That annexation was critical for the structure in the City of Fate. And we look back at it now, I think it is going to help protect the city up there. We've got Crenshaw up there. We've got that high school. That high school is going to bring a lot of pressure onto this council for lots of subdivisions that want to come up in there and get around that school there. We've got the process of how to keep it under control. So that's something that we need to make sure that we do.
Mr. Robbins.
Largest item between now and November is the city budget. Part of that process is determining city services. In your opinion, what are most critical? Which areas are lacking? Please comment on today's needs versus future needs. And how would you approach funding current and future needs?
City budget is very critical. One of the things that Mayor Greenberg mentioned at your town hall you just did, it took you a while to understand that budget. Understand how do you do it? What's all in there? Because there's so many. If you look at it, it is huge. There's lots of different line items, lots of different things in there. Some of the key things that we really need to look at is our DPS. So our DPS, I was around when we created that DPS. So we had everything coming in, a lot of strain on the budget from that DPS. We didn't know what we really had there. Now we're taking that DPS, we're splitting it. Now you have your fire and your police. You have to make sure that you're going to get a lot of strain on that budget. You got to make sure that you're really looking at that, talking to the chiefs to find out, do you have enough resources for that? Because I don't think we do. We got fire on the south side coming in that we may have apparatuses there, but do we have enough people in order to put bodies back there? So you got to really look at not only just bodies, but do we have the equipment for them? Do they have all the necessary things that they need? You got your police coming and doing what they're doing. Do we have the adequate thing there? The other key thing that we're going to need to look at for this budget is what are we doing with our roads? Roads are another big, big, big issue. So the county is finally doing a lot of the bonds that they're spending that money on, getting these projects out here. We've got Ben Payne going up and down now. We've got different projects. We've got 551 coming in. What are we doing with the roads that we have existing? We've got hundreds of miles of roads. What are we going to do with that? How do we maintain that? When you get that Crenshaw coming up there, now you're adding in. My whole philosophy when I became mayor was I wanted to keep all the development around the I-30 corridor. Put your commercial in there, have some buffers in there, then have your subdivisions. We had Wood Creek, we had Williamsburg. Williamsburg was coming out of bankruptcy. A lot of people don't realize what that was. That had a lot of different things in that planned development that were really bad for the city. Working through that. Keeping everything there, you can keep track of your infrastructure to make sure that you have that. Doing that Crenshaw up there, it's a great project, but now you're introducing lots of more infrastructure up there that you got to take care of, water, sewer. If they're going to do septic, they can do that. But then you have all that road structure up there. Those are the two key ones that I've got that I think are the most important. But you cannot forget about what the citizens really want. Parks. Parks are something that we made a big effort in. The downtown park, Smith Family Park here, Joe Berger Park down south. We made a promise to those citizens that we're going to take care of the parks, we're going to build out the parks. That's something we can't forget. I know money's tight, you got to really look at it. You've got to really look at that budget of where can we take some dollars to move over to make sure that we're doing that. You also got to make sure that the rest of the departments don't get forgotten, because everybody thinks about police and fire. You got lots of other departments here that have needs as well. You have the water department, the roads departments. You got all these different departments, and how are you going to fund them to make sure that they have the resources that they need? So knowing that budget, I've done the budget many times. I've sat where you guys, I've gone through them line by line, so I have the experience of the budget. I was here last week when you guys did your budget kickoff. I know where it is. I can jump into that seat right now and be ready to start working on the budget. A lot of people think, well, you don't need to have budget experience. You can have corporate budget. I did a $60 million corporate budget. That's totally different than the city budgets. A lot of differences in there. So it is crucial that you have somebody with experience that can get in there and understand it.
What's your philosophy on the tax rate that supports strong city services for a growing community?
Tax rate. I think tax rate is very critical. I like a low tax rate, something that does not impact all the services. I don't want a tax increase. If we make the decision that we have to do a tax increase, I think it should be voter approved. It should not be a council approved, it should be voter approved. And the reason why is because you're now impacting a homeowner that has got a mud tax, that has a county tax, that has a school tax, and now you're throwing in more taxes on the citizen from the city tax. I know you got to look at those things all differently, but you got to think about the entire tax entity that that homeowner has. Let them have that decision. If we can say we need this and we can justify it, send it to the voters, let the voters vote on it. If they say yes, great. If they don't, then we live within that means there. But I think that any tax increase should always have a voter approval. I'm not fond of COs because I think that does not give the voters an opportunity to have a say in it.
Thank you, Mr. Megacy. All right, and that concludes the 10 minutes. So unfortunately, I didn't get to the rest, but thanks for answering those.
I'm not planning on running.
Okay.
You're what?
I am not planning on running for that open seat.
All right.
I did send you guys a copy of my notes, so you guys all do have a copy of that.
Okay, great.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Next, we have Joshua Martin.
Welcome, Mr. Martin.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Ms. Raines.
Okay, I'll jump right in. Tell us about a time when you had a project that needed to be accomplished and you were enthusiastic about completing it, but upon initiation of the project, you realized processes, procedures, policies served as potential obstacles to the completion of your project or inhibited the deadline imposed. How did you choose to proceed in that situation, and were you able to accomplish your goal?
Yeah, so prior to my current role at QXO, I worked for Deloitte in recruitment marketing. And one of the things that I did after starting there was start to roll out YouTube Shorts on our YouTube channel. And we had some issues where we were publishing videos and they were getting flagged by risk. And it was, they're very, very protective about what goes out relating to the firm. So that was a little bit of a pain. And obviously we had to take a few videos down and we had to redo those. But what I did after that is I would loop in the risk team earlier on in the process. And actually, we were able to leverage them more as a partner and get some great ideas out of them and get buy-in on the video concepts before we move forward with them. So that's kind of how I handled it, and then we were able to make it into this great thing.
Awesome. Tell us about a time when you felt compelled to make a decision that resulted in a much less popular outcome, but you believed to be the best course of action, despite pressure from colleagues, company executives, family, to make a different choice that would be more accepted, but you disagreed with as being the best course of action. How did you navigate that scenario and reach the conclusion for the decision you made?
Yeah, so one of the things that I do is also website design and digital marketing, and I normally do that for nursing homes and senior living places and things like that. Well, the attorney for one of those companies wanted me to build a website for him. And so we've been friends for a long time. And I just told him, Pat, I don't have the time or the bandwidth to do this right now, so I'm gonna have to just back out a little bit and maybe we'll come back to this in a year or two. And so he didn't take it very well. He really wanted to work with me, and it kind of hurt to say no to the business. But learning how to say no and to put up those boundaries a little bit professionally really paid off in the long run, and now we've had this great business relationship. So it was a little bit uncomfortable having that conversation at the time, but it worked out really well in the end.
Mr. Robbins.
Largest item between now and November is the city budget. Part of that process is determining city services. In your opinion, what areas are most critical? Which areas are lacking? Please comment on today's needs versus future needs. How would you approach funding current and future needs?
Yeah, I think, speaking from personal experience, public safety is most important. And to me, that's one of the biggest attractors for our city and for people moving here and for businesses setting up shop. So I think it's helping to give our new police chief what he needs and the tools and the resources to be able to take care of us, I think is a great thing. So that to me is the most critical priority. Could you read your question again? I'm sorry, I got that first and then trailed off.
Yeah, part of the process is determining city services. In your opinion, what areas are most critical? Which areas are lacking? Please comment on today's needs versus future needs and how you would approach funding current and future needs.
Yeah, so I would say, for things that are lacking, it's infrastructure and traffic and sidewalks and bike lanes. And it's things that are already being worked on, but we see them and we're visible and we hear about them. I would say as far as funding them, I'm a big proponent of no new revenue is kind of the baseline for where we start to build out the budget and then we build off of that. But I think prioritizing public safety, prioritizing sound fiscal policy and being disciplined in the way that we're spending money is important.
Part of that process is the tax rate. What is your philosophy on setting a tax rate that supports strong city services for a growing community?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, eventually the biggest thing is going to be building out our infrastructure in our businesses in our commercial sector so that we can build off of the tax rate from them. Using our I-30 corridor and using those businesses to be able to generate sales tax is really important. But as with the previous question, with the no new revenue, Not putting all of the burden on homeowners, but being able to shift some of that burden long-term, I think is important. Also comparing Fate to places like Roy City that has a much higher tax. And, we're actually on the lower end of the spectrum. So being disciplined with how we're going forward and being wise with the way that we're spending our money.
Mr. Manival.
Have you ever been appointed to fill a council vacancy here
I
in
have
Fate?
not.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Hatley.
The filing period for the May election closed on February 13th, and there were open council seats available at that time. What factors influenced your decision not to run for one of those seats and instead pursue the appointment to this vacant position?
Yeah, so in November, I started a new job in my current company, QXO, and I wasn't sure what was going to be involved as far as time and bandwidth, and I wasn't quite ready to commit to doing a full 3-year term, so I just felt like it wasn't the best time.
So if you were to get this appointment, would you consider running in November to finish out the term in May?
I'm not planning on it, but I don't want to say for sure that I wouldn't do that. So I think it just kind of depends on how it goes.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Huffman.
Can you tell me what your favorite thing of Fate is?
I think for me, my family and I, we have 4 kids, and we've been getting into biking a lot. So if you see, 5 to 6 bikes going down CD Boren, that's probably us. And we can go out when it's dark. And so to me, that's a really big deal that we can ride all the way to the park, to Robert Smith Family Park, and keep going even, and it's safe, and I feel safe, and I've never not felt safe. So that's my favorite part. And then just our parks and our Fate Station and our everything that's getting built out. I think downtown, we're really excited about to be able to go visit those places.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, Mr. Martin, thank you very much for coming here and answering our questions today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
And next we have Brad Scott.
Welcome, Mr. Scott.
Hello. Thank you for allowing me to take my notes with me.
You're welcome. All right, Ms. Raines, you ready?
Okay. Tell us about a time when you had a project that needed to be accomplished and you were enthusiastic about completing it, but upon initiation of the project, you realized processes, procedures, policies served as potential obstacles to the completion of your project or inhibited the deadline imposed. How did you choose to proceed in that situation, and were you able to accomplish your goal?
Yeah, so my role, I think a lot of people look at my job title and say, hey, there's an HR element, but the HR technology is another piece. So being in projects, I've been not only the project manager, but subject matter experts, et cetera. So when we look at projects in general, the structure of the projects matter the most. That means building out the right steerco, building out the right work streams, and understanding that scope creep is a part of projects. I don't think anybody who's ever worked on a project has not seen something come around and you're like, how do we hit our deadline? Statistically, a lot of projects don't complete when they're supposed to, but what I have found is if you have great communication, you have the right cadence of meetings of those communications and identifying those situations that may come along and take you off the deadline, make sure you have the right decision makers in place. And that does not mean that you always get your point or your win, as I like to call it, in regards to making any changes into a project. However, having the right structure typically will override those type of situations.
Okay. Tell us about a time when you felt compelled to make a decision that resulted in a much less popular outcome, but that you believed to be the best course of action, despite pressure from colleagues, company executives, family, to make a different choice that would be more accepted, but you disagreed with as being the best course of action. How did you navigate that scenario and reach the conclusion for the decision you made?
Yeah, in those situations, HR, we sometimes become the face of decisions that aren't so nice and not so tough. And definitely impacts employees and their families as well. So I think being transparent, being able to explain what you can to those team members, but most importantly, I think if there's a disagreement where you have to come to a point where you're saying, hey, I have an answer that's not going to, please 95%, explain the why, okay? Doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get agreement, but at least you can stand on the principles of saying, hey, I can understand that you may not agree with it, but this is our approach and this is the decision we come through. A lot of times you're looking for the better of the good of the organization or the community in this case, as well as the long-term risks. Thank you.
Mr. Robbins.
Largest item between now and November is the city budget. Part of that process is determining city services. In your opinion, which areas are most critical, which areas are lacking? Please comment on today's needs versus future needs, and how would you approach funding current and future needs?
Got it. Okay. So I think top three priorities first is maintaining excellent public safety while managing growth. When this group put together the pillars for strategic priorities, I know that there's this sense that there's equal weighting, but I always read left to right, and the first one was public safety. So considerations from that perspective is this. I do have a bias, I will admit that. I have a couple firefighters in the family. I have an uncle and a cousin who are a fire chief. And I do think it's very important that that group is, as well as any first responders, whether it be the police or the sewage, water companies, that we make sure that we don't underfund those particular populations of team members. Another consideration with my bias is, first and foremost, my wife will probably kill me, hopefully she's not re-recording this, but we did have a medical emergency at my home, probably about 2 years ago, and it did affect my wife. And I was very fortunate that when calling 911, that group was at our house. I don't know how fast they could drive that car, but within a couple minutes. So when I thought it was brought up in a couple of council meetings before, it's like, if I was in that situation, but then there was another event on the other side of the interstate, are we equipped to handle those situations? I understand that it can be definitely some pressure when you think about a large majority of funds and things that you're talking about through budget has to do with those services, but I do think that undercutting or underfunding those particular avenues would be a mistake. Second, expanding commercial tax base. And I really would focus more on the I-30 corridor. With the expansion of I-30, and specifically from the state, there's a lot of opportunity there. And when you think about the on-ramps and the off-ramps and where particular commercial businesses are placed, I understand we don't have a lot of decisions in what gets placed there. However, that is a big opportunity to take the burden off of the families of the city. And I do think that that would be my approach, is seeing how well we can do on I-30 specifically. And then thirdly, kind of a little bit of the elephant room is making sure we build the trust back to from the communities, from the families in this community. I don't have an opinion necessarily on how things are going, but the reality is that there is a large silent majority that's concerned about what this council is able to execute on with their communication as well as their partnership. So my hope would be to come in here, make sure that I'm collaborating with all of you, making sure that I'm listening, asking the right appropriate questions, and being fair and honest with each of you.
Part of that process is also the tax rate. What is your philosophy on setting a tax rate that supports strong city services for a growing community?
Well, like before, I think my philosophy is that the tax rate should be driven by the level of service that the community has asked for. I know that public senses, they would not like to see their taxes go up. I would prefer that as well. However, I think looking at your revenues, looking at your expenses on a regular cadence, and making sure that it's in a manageable position is judicious and appropriate for that group. So I would be working hopefully with the city manager as well as those in office to see where those efficiencies are. So when I think about, for instance, I have not heard the term turnover retention used, and I do, like I said, I am HR, but when you consider some of the budget elements with managing the city, those come into play a lot more than people realize. For example, with my organization, I'm probably oversharing, 47% of our budget is labor. okay? So where are those opportunities for efficiencies? And some considerations when you're budgeting as well is what is that turnover rate? What is that time to fill? Because that can be the difference of hitting a budget and not hitting budgets.
Mr. Manival.
Have you ever been appointed to an open council spot in Fate?
Not in Fate, not in anywhere.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Great
Mr.
question.
Hatley.
Thank you for the softball, by the way.
The filing period for the May election closed on February 13th, and there were open council seats available at that time. What factors influenced your decision not to run for one of those seats and instead pursue the appointment to the vacant position?
Okay, so my decision comes more about timing more than anything, as well as purpose. If you'd asked me at the beginning of the year if I had the ability to serve this council, I would have told you I would not be able to. At that time, I was taking some courses at MIT, and it was really killing my brain a little bit. So I did not have that point. I think like a lot of people, I wasn't interested in entering in local politics like a lot of residents. I was really looking at the challenges that the city council had and hoping I could improve that situation. So I look at this as not necessarily an appointment towards politics, but more an appointment towards a service to the city in the interim until elections are had.
Now, would you consider running, if you were to get this appointment, running from in November to finish out the term to next May?
I would say I don't know. And the reason why is if in November I'm not having an impact, or if there is no, I would say if I'm not having an impact on the council, I think it would be, I think I know where it's time to take myself out of the race at that point.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and Ms. Huffman, and you have 40 seconds.
Oh, great. I've been over talking.
Hopefully it's pretty easy. What is your favorite thing about the city of Fate?
Oh, I would say quite a few things. First off, I moved from Frisco. Me and my wife are both from small towns. I'm from a little town of 6,000. She's from a little town of 11,000. We came out here to be a part of the community. It was similar to what we grew up in. We have an 11-year-old daughter. I think there's a lot of opportunity here, a lot of cool things that are coming around the corner when I think about the projects there that this city has. But it still has that small town community, and I do believe that a large majority of our population, if not all of them, do care about one another, and I think being a part of that community matters to a lot of people.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Scott.
Thank you.
And now we have Michael Wright.
Welcome, Mr. Wright.
Just for fairness, I can't in good conscience take the extra 25 minutes. I'm just going to accept 10.
How gracious. All right, Ms. Raines, you want to kick us off?
All right, tell us about a time when you had a project that needed to be accomplished and you were enthusiastic about completing it, but upon initiation of the project, you realized processes, procedures, policies served as potential obstacles to the completion of your project or inhibited the deadline imposed. How did you choose to proceed in that situation, and were you able to accomplish your goal?
So my wife and I have a small rental portfolio. In Wiley, over in Wiley, we are also the HOA president. A lot of these HOAs in Wiley are a lot smaller communities. They aren't like Wood Creek that you have hundreds of houses. We have about 68. We have no amenities, we have irrigation, and we have the management company. And so as the HOA president, thinking about, the other people that are living in this community, what are we actually paying this money for? And so we set out on what is now a 5-year plan to dissolve the HOA. We were super excited about it. At first, I was excited about it. And the more and more research that I did, I found, well, this is not an easy process. So what started out as this looks like something quick and simple that we can do has turned into, like I said, a 5-year plan. We're starting out partitioning off the land, getting the homeowners buy-in. You have to have a supermajority. You have to find surveyors to come out. You have to work on, getting the vote on replacing or removing the management company. And something else that comes with that is showing that as a community, not just as an individual, that you are competent enough to run a community and hold it without the need of a management company.
Okay. Tell us about a time when you felt compelled to make a decision that resulted in a much less popular outcome, but you believed to be the best course of action, despite pressure from colleagues, company executives, family, to make a different choice that would be more accepted, but you disagreed with as being the best course of action. How did you navigate that scenario and reach the conclusion for the decision you made?
Yeah, so this comes from the same field, the HOA. Again, this was a fairly new community. It was established right around 2022. The developers had just relinquished their control. So we're no longer being subsidized in our water or anything. So I come into the role with about a $2,000 a year deficit. And, my vice president, secretary, they are new. They're first-time homeowners. And when I brought up the idea of, hey, we need to at least stair-step an increase in dues. Very unpopular, because again, we have no amenities. We're paying for irrigation and a management company, and explaining this to them, they're saying, well, people are going to be upset. And I was like, we're gonna go broke. And so, I lost that. It was 2-1, but it turned out to actually be a blessing. What I learned from that was you don't necessarily have to get your way. There are other ways to accomplish what you're trying to. And what I ended up doing is we ended up replacing our landscapers. We went out, we found someone that was cheaper, and on this path to, remove this HOA or dissolve it, partitioning out the land is going to make us have a lot less liability, as well as make that cheaper. It's going to make it a lot more cheaper for us. And so we have been able to free up that cash flow that we needed to not have a deficit. So sometimes you've just got to take it as a loss, even though it's the right thing, and there's always another path.
Mr. Robbins.
Largest item between now and November is the city budget. Part of that process is determining city services. In your opinion, what areas are most critical? Which areas are lacking? Please comment on today's needs versus future needs and how you would approach funding current and future needs.
Yeah, so one of the big things, our house in Princeton, we've seen that community grow. Princeton boomed. I think that it had something like a 200% growth. And while that's great, something else that I saw was taxes consistently increased. You saw taxes increase, but you didn't see infrastructure following. And two things that I think that we need to focus on. The first is we need to fuel our growth with headcount. Rather than increasing taxes, we need to be taking from the developer budget that they are handing over to develop our infrastructure. The second goes along with that. We need to make sure that we are building out our infrastructure before we are opening our land for more houses. And again, this goes back to Princeton. What did we see there? We saw I think it was a 5-year halt on developers. They needed that, and they are still struggling. You had rolling blackouts because of how many houses that you had, and Encore wasn't prepared. And the city wasn't ready to slow down either. They just wanted to keep taking what they were getting from the developers. And I think the third thing, and I am very developer heavy in my opinions on how we need to be growing, because that's what we're doing, we're growing. I think that we need to put more of an effort into reviewing their work, having surveyors out to make sure that the retaining walls that the developers are building are sound before we actually give them permit to continue building.
Part of that process is also the tax rate. What is your philosophy on setting a tax rate that supports strong city services for a growing community?
I think that I touched on that in my last comment. We shouldn't be seeing an increase to existing homeowner tax rates. We need to see our projects and our development fueled through the actual headcount growth, and the taxes are coming in from the developers. We need to use our existing budget for overhead, and we need to be using our developer budget for developing the community and infrastructure.
Mr. Manival.
I'm going to skip to Mark.
Okay, Mr. Hatley.
The filing period for the May election closed on February 13th, and there were open city council seats available. What factors influenced your decision not to run for one of those seats and instead pursue appointment to the vacant position?
Right. So we planned on moving out of Fate. And, we spent a lot of time at church getting to know Andrew. And so we learned about, what are the city needs? What is the city's vision? And when the spot opened up, I thought of Isaiah and said, here I am. So, there appeared to be a need, and so I was making myself available.
Now, on that, if you were to be appointed, would you run again in November to fulfill the rest of the term to May?
So it's still something I'd have to think about.
Okay.
We'll see of how and if this would work, and leave it to the people to make that decision.
Thank you.
Ms. Huffman? And you have about 1 minute for this question.
Can I eat into that 25, actually?
Please tell me your favorite thing about the city of Fate.
And again, I'll go back to Princeton. So many franchises. When we moved here to Fate, we went downtown, and I see Dark Ritual. I see all of the small mom and pop shops. I see support of the community. The number of parks that we have popping up out here. I think that the community, the small business and locally owned emphasis are two of the things I think are going to help us to sustain internally as well as continue to grow.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Wright.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Okay, so Ms. Vicky, can you confirm that was the last of the applicants?
Yes, that was the last applicant.
Okay, council, seeing that just at least the two people next to me were writing a lot, as was I, do we want to take a few minutes to look over notes before we accept nominations, or are you guys ready to move right into that? And to be clear, as far as the process goes, the accept nominations, we would need to accept nominations first and then recess into executive session if necessary. But it does need to be in that order?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Quick question. Is it possible after executive session to nominate additional people? Should we be convinced one way or the other, or would that be inappropriate?
I'll defer to legal, but our appointment policy says we accept nominations, then we go into executive session and then return and then vote on nominations in alphabetical order. So, I'm assuming that the council could vote to deviate from the policy if that was a majority vote. But I will defer to legal.
So the policy does have the interviews after the interviews are completed, nominations will be made, and then you may recess into executive session to discuss the appointments. I don't see any prohibition to adding an additional nomination after the executive session, but I do think you need to accept accept nominations first before we go into executive session.
Thank you.
Okay, so council, at this time, we will open up and accept nominations. Ms. Huffman?
I nominate Stephanie Adams.
Okay, I would like to nominate Ms. Lorna Grove. Any other, Mr. Robbins?
Brad Scott.
Any other nominations from council? Okay, we will close the nomination window at this time. Council, so it does, as far as recess into executive session, if necessary, are there any council members who are wishing to discuss this in executive session? Versus just stay out here and vote on the nominations in alphabetical order? Okay, we don't need to go into executive session then.
That was
Ms. Vicky?
easy. Yes.
I'm sorry?
I said that was easy.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we'll vote in alphabetical order. And so the voting order will go Stephanie Adams, Lorna Grove, Brad Scott. This will be a hand vote. Remember, we have one vacancy, so you are only allowed to vote one time. Okay? So all in favor of Stephanie Adams, please raise your hand. 2. All in favor of Lorna Grove, please raise your hand. 3. And all in favor of Brad Scott, please raise your hand. 1. Okay. A majority was not secured, so if you are amenable, we could drop Brad Scott and revote again for Stephanie Adams and Lorna Grove, if that is the will of the council. Okay. Second round of votes. Stephanie Adams, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. All those in favor of Lorna Grove, please raise your hand. 3. So this is the time in which you may want to discuss amongst yourselves.
All right, Mr. Robbins.
Do we want to discuss here? You want to go executive session or leave it empty? I guess those are our choices.
Do y'all want to go to executive session to discuss? Sure.
Can we go to executive session after voting?
I think we can go.
Jennifer, they can go into an executive session at any time.
Okay. Well, at this time then, at 7:53, we will recess into executive session.
And Mayor, just to clarify, because we have to read this, we're going into an executive session under Texas Government Code Section 551074, personnel matters to discuss the appointment of the council member place number 1.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, it is now 8:33. We will convene back into regular session. No action was taken in executive session. Ms. Vicky? Or Mr. Robbins?
I'd like to make a motion to reconsider Brad Scott for the appointment.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second.
Okay. So this will be a vote. Do you want this as a hand vote, or do you want us to use the?
This will be a hand vote.
This will just be a hand vote to reconsider Mr. Brad Scott into the, as a nominee for consideration.
All right, so I just want to be real clear in what the vote's happening. As what I understand it, it's just adding Mr. Scott back into the list of nominees.
Correct. Okay, so all those in favor of adding Mr. Scott, this is just to add back in. All those in favor of adding Mr. Brad Scott back into the nominees, raise your hand. Yeah, just adding him back in the, so that was unanimous.
Oh, okay.
Unanimous. That's just adding him back. Okay, Ms. Vicky, do you want to list off all of the?
Yes, so we're revoting?
Yes.
Okay.
So this will count as the actual vote on the, for the open position.
Okay, so we'll be voting on all three nominees. So the first vote is for Stephanie Adams. All in favor? Raise your hand. 0. All in favor of Lorna Grove? Raise your hand. 3. All in favor of Brad Scott? Raise your hand. 3. We do not have a majority.
Okay, so without a majority, council, would we need, if we just wanted to leave this seat vacant now until November, does that need to be an official motion to do so? Or would we just? No action taken?
No
And it
action
stays
taken.
vacant? Okay. Okay, so Ms. Vicky, next item, please.
So then we would move to agenda item 5B, which is discuss, consider, and take any necessary action regarding ordinance number O-2026-043, ordering a special election to be held jointly with all other entities within Rockwall County that will be holding an election, establishing that said election will be administered by the Rockwall County Elections Administrator on Tuesday, November 3rd, 2026, for the purpose of electing a council member place 1 to fill the remainder of an unexpired term ending May 2027, providing a candidate filing period for early voting by personal appearance, establishing procedures for the election, providing for a contract with the Rockwall County Elections Administrator for the election services, and resolving other matters incident and related to such election.
Do I have a motion?
Make a motion, we approve ordinance O-2026-043 as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion on this agenda item? Seeing none, please vote. The motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Ms. Vicky, next agenda item, please.
Next is item 6, adjournment.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Please vote. Who didn't vote? Oh, there we go. Motion passes 6-0. We are adjourned.